Welcome to Jeny's Tattle Tales. I'm Jeny Heckman. I'm author of the Heaven and Earth series, and this is Andrea Flescu, and she is the marketing manager for Celtic Butterfly Publishing. And today we are talking with the lovely Susan Payne. She is the author of a standalone book entitled The Woman of His Dreams, and it's a historical romance. And we are so excited to have you here today. Welcome.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
So I guess the first question I wanted to know is if this is historical romance is kind of your genre, right?
Yep.
So what genre have you never written but you'd like to write, and why?
Possibly Viking. I don't go back that far in my thoughts. I like to write about strong women. I can't read or believe in a woman who's, sits there, whimpers and says, someone save me. It goes so against my grain, and my 4 daughters are, I find it difficult to believe that if there were that many women that weak of mind, we would never be where we are right now, as far as how far human race has come, because we raise the children. If we weren't strong, we would not produce strong children, whether male or female. And as I was growing up, of course, a lot of the romance were Regencies, and a lot of it was women who seemed to hover in the corner, whimpering, saying to the strong male, "Save me."
Yeah, that's so true. And I don't think there's too many women that like to read those kinds of books anymore.
I read almost 80% historical romances, and I remember like 15, 20 years ago when I started reading these books, that's what it was. Women waiting for guys to come and save them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of mine, when they say, "Oh, what is your story? What trope?" And I'm going, "Oh, I don't follow a trope very, maybe, there's some rescue, but I don't follow tropes." And so I can't put in there, "Oh, Cinderella," or any of the usual, especially for the Regency. Again, there's still, I think there were a lot of women thinking for themselves. There's historical documentation of them being dressed like men, smoking, joining the army, being soldiers. So, we may want to think that they wore gloves and kept under a parasol so they didn't, get any freckles, and always did as their mothers told them to do. But I don't think that's the truth. I think a lot of them were pregnant before they got married. I think a lot of them had a lot more experiences, more than maybe their husband has ever, knew about. But
a teenage girl is a teenage girl.
Yes, I was going to say, the female curiosity is there, and the urge to flirt and what have you. And if you've got a good-looking footman, I just can't see him going, "Oh no, mother, I never kissed him goodnight." Oh yeah. So yes, it's that kind of thing that I wanted to kind of change. I enjoyed reading the stories. Barbara Cartland was
I love Barbara.
The biggest, author of the time for any of that type of thing. But if you notice, it was very sweet romance. There was hardly ever a kiss involved.
I think she was one of those, I think I saw adaptations of her books like 30 years ago. There's some really good ones. I think those movies were the ones that got me reading these books, historical romance.
Barbara
Yes.
Cartland, yeah.
But again, they were sweet romances.
Yes.
I found a place that actually called her books costume porn. Because they were always written in very much detail on, usually they took someone who was poor, of good family but poor, and a richer older lady would be took her in under her wing and dressed her, and then one of the nephews or something would appear and actually, you know, kind of hawk up on her and decide that, you know, and buy her jewelry and pay for all this stuff that was going on. But a lot of the story, if you took it out of pages, a lot of it was about the clothing and the hair and the jewels. So
Yeah.
when I read that about the porn, I thought, oh yeah, that's okay. You know, that's the reason why a lot of them, because the stories were so similar in actual writing, even, you know, that you sometimes would swear you had just read them, and you didn't, of course. But it was, at the time, it was all we had to read along that style. And I've always been a historical buff, I guess, interested in anything, going all the way back. I recently wrote that I probably would do a love story between cave people, you know, caveman versus cave woman. But there wasn't a whole lot there to write about because they were limited, even in their vocabulary, I'm sure, was limited. And I, you know, other than whacking her over the head and dragging her into the cave, I couldn't see any more of the foreplay or anything going on. You know, that was going to be pretty much it for the love story involved in that period of time. So
Have you read Clan of the Cave Bear?
no, should I?
Oh, yeah. If you want to look, she did amazing. Jean M. Owl is her name, and she wrote a series called Clan of the Cave Bear. And there's a whole bunch. I think there's 6 or 7 books in the series, and it's all about that. It's all about the very earliest of man and the transition into the new man. So there's like that little hitch in evolution that is happening. So you have the kind of they call them the flatheads.
Okay.
And then there was the new man that was coming, that were blonde and tall and beautiful and everything. And it's the older the neo man melding with the new modern one, and the new modern one had things that this one didn't. And it's a whole series, and it was written quite some time ago. Jean ML is the author, and I'm not sure if she's still alive. I'm not sure, but she's she did a whole series on it. Pretty popular series. And if you're interested in reading about that, she did a wonderful job at trying to get you into that scene and the way they talk and all that stuff. Matter of fact, the talk is a big part of the story. So anyway.
Yeah, that would be interesting for me. See, and that's
a lot of history.
It ran through my mind to do one, and that was it. I would be basically one and done. And of course, no one could say you were wrong. You know, they're always going to point out any flaws because we're not around.
I love it.
But there's cave drawings that you can get a lot of information from. I've always, checked into those kind of things too. And
yeah, well, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so if writing is your first passion, what is your second? If you're not writing,
we'll do it. Antique furniture. Oh yeah. From the time I was first married, which was at 18, I started collecting old furniture. And that's all you could call it, is old furniture, and I still have the original pieces. I rarely get rid of any of them. So I've had, a goodly number of years collecting them. And I've got originals from 1850, and I'll put it in my books. People will walk into a room and, I describe my sofa there, or, my table, whatever, and go from there. But
and what time period are you talking?
I have everything back to Charles the One.
Wow.
So
old
yeah,
English colonial kind of style, or
earlier than that, we're going Rococo, which was, it's kind of what they were using a little bit in Regency time. But it was their old furniture, meaning, okay, this is my great grandmother's mirror and she always had it. And so of course I have it in my living room, you know.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's cool. That's really cool. What a great side thing. Side passion. That's awesome. Or second passion, I guess.
I didn't get very far from the first though, did I?
No, but hey, that's okay.
I'm just not the hang gliding type of person, I guess.
Oh, well, I'm not either, believe me. I think your feet should be firmly planted on the ground, but that's just me. My kids want to go skydiving this summer, and I won't be watching them. Okay, if you could spend time with a character from your book, whom would it be, and what would you do during that day?
Well, I think I'd go back to my first series. I had those self-published because they were not what I would consider commercially viable. They were done similar to Spider in the Corner is what I call it, fly on the wall, where something is kind of telling the story and showing the reactions of people to what's happening around them. And then you get the characters themselves, their thoughts and their reactions to things as you know, the story progresses. And I did not know I was building a series at the time, but I found this character that she is so sweet, she is so good that I thought she deserved more time to be seen. So the first story was she was here comes the dead zone. See, here we're going with the air, but
That's okay.
she was an orphan from a New York foundling home, and she'd taken and watched over some orphans on their train ride out west. She was too old herself to be on the, you know, as an option for an orphan, but she got a job. So they went out as far as St. Louis, and she got a job there with a French chef who taught her in his kitchens to be actually a sous chef. At the time, that was a rarity for even a woman to be in a professional kitchen situation. And she gets fired because they start rumors about her and the chef who's married, and why she's the sous chef rather than her abilities. And she leaves that situation and takes basically any job she could get, which happened to be cooking for a ranch in the middle of Kansas. And so she becomes a female ranch cook, and things go from there. But she ends up bringing other orphans from New York. She sees the potential for their job. She sees potential for, you know, getting out and under the stigma of being an orphan. I ended up with 8 stories going off from her one story, and then people who come, and they all have a love story basis in each of the books, but there's a lot more to it. And
What's her name?
her name is Cassie.
Cassie. And
Yes.
and so if you were to spend a day with her, what would you do? What would you want to go do?
I'd want to just follow her around. She had a unique way of thinking about food. A lot of my people, especially in Westerns, there's a lot of food involved. Cooking is another somewhat passion for me. And so most of my characters are normal, everyday characters. I mean, it used to be for Regency, they always had to be lady this and lord that. And many times I will bring that down to, that's not who the story is about, that it's not about, because, you know, that was such a small part of life I mean, there was a million people in London, and not that many were aristocrats. So
Right.
there was a lot more, what they say, downstairs than there were upstairs. And
Yeah.
so a lot of my stories tend to be more about normal people finding love, setting up their life, figuring out, how it all works. And I try to set up a background for them so that when you're done with the book, you have a feeling for those people. Most of the time they are sympathetic, empathetic, that people that you said, boy, I wish I could be there and meet and spend a day with them. So, it's hard to choose just one, but because Cassie was my first, I'd go with her.
Yeah. There's a Pride and Prejudice is one of my favorite books. And the one really great book called Longbourn. Have you read that?
No.
Yes. It's basically the servants of the family in Pride and Prejudice. And I always thought that was such a great take to talk about the servants going on. It's what was happening behind the scenes when the Pride and Prejudice story is going on. It's all the servants and what their story is behind the scenes. And I always thought that was a great take on it. So I love that you do that, because you're right. Everybody goes to kind of the Lord and the Lady, and when really most of the people were not that way. So that's a great take on it. It's really cool.
I do a lot of soldiers back from the war, and just everyday people. And for my Westerns, because America basically didn't have an aristocratic, except for maybe Boston had a little bit, New York a little bit. Once you got this side of the Mississippi, there were it didn't care who, no one cared who your name, your father was, or your family. You were going to have to stand up for yourself or be trampled, with what happens in the world.
Those stories are more interesting too, to me. I mean, you can sit around and eat grapes all you want, but the people that went out there and worked and actually established the country, and they went in the covered wagons, and they worked the land, and they did it. I mean, those were interesting lives, and they were actually the ones that built this for all of us. So their story is more fascinating to me anyway. So I'm excited actually to read one of your books. I think that will be kind of fun to read one of your books and see.
Well, I have, by next month, I'll have 13 published out there. And I've written 85.
Holy cow.
I write constantly. I have probably 20 works in progress going. What I do, if they keep nagging at me, I'll quick put them down. I give them a number, WIP next to it. Like, so, I have like 30. I'm up to number 35. Some of them I've already turned into books, but it lets me free up my mind to finish the book I'm writing, or usually the books. I'm usually writing more than one at a time. Mm-hmm. And it gives me the urgency, I guess. I always feel the urgency to finish one, because I have all these others that I need to get down and in paper form is my my preference.
I love it. Okay, well, so now our last question that we have for you is, what would you most like to say to your readers?
I think it's read everything you can, all genres. If you don't like one, skip it, go light on it, whatever, but don't deny yourselves. I keep reading myself. I've got books going all the time. My Kindle is full of little things that I can stop and read. Because of that, I've been doing a lot of anthologies, because they're shorter for me to read. I'm a fast reader. I'm a fast typist. So I can do it, do multiple things and still have plenty of time. I usually watch TV with my husband 4 to 6 hours every evening. I sleep 10 hours a night minimum. So, you know, the rest of the time is basically my writing time or my reading time. And yeah, so I'd tell them, don't, you know, even if you're a writer, don't stop reading. Don't, you know, it's too much information out there that you don't want to let pass you by.
That's great advice. Really great advice. Okay, well, I'd like to say thank you so much on behalf of Andrea and myself. I'd like to say thank you so much for joining us today, Susan. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you and getting to know your writing style and all. It sounds intriguing. I'm really excited to read you. And I just wanted to say that Susan will be on our Tattletales page, so you can go on to jenyheckman.com. And you can read more about Susan and all of her books that she writes. And if not on her our website, go to her website, which is authorsusanpayne.com. And that's about it. That's what we have. And I'd like to say thank you again so much for coming on. It's been such a pleasure.
Well, thank you to you both. You made it painless.
Oh, good. that's half the battle, right?
That is.
Okay, well, you have a great day, and we hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.